And we are live. Welcome to another episode of the MMK Show. Today, we're going to be talking about inventory management and how you can simplify inventory management. And to talk about that, we've got with us Hiba Weber from Seller Mobile. Hi, Hiba. How are you doing?
Hello, I am doing well. How are you guys?
Very well.
Good,
Thanks.
Hiba. Good to see you. Yeah,
Good to see you too.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So, where are you joining us from, Hiba?
So normally my office, my home is in Dallas, Texas, but for the next 4 weeks, I'm in Germany. This is my husband's childhood bedroom. So we spend the summers here in Germany. It is a little bit hotter than normal, but we're enjoying our time here.
Oh,
Lovely.
Very cool. Yeah. There's a heat wave going on in Europe right now.
Yeah, Western Europe, especially. We're in the north a little bit, so it's not as bad, but it's in the 90s, which is I think like 32 Celsius, and that's unseasonably hot for this time of year. So
apparently, London has had 40 degrees.
Yeah,
that's unheard of.
Really hot.
Is really hot because we're used to that in Texas. We're like 40. That's like late spring, but we've got air conditioning everywhere and we don't go anywhere. So
that's when you can do fried eggs on the road.
Exactly.
It is so hot.
Yeah, it's the same in India as well. I mean, peak summer it was 45, 46. It's scorching hot. Of course, you wouldn't go out, but yeah. Cool. And Mark and Kevin, it's pretty cold for you guys still, right?
7 at the moment outside now.
Ooh, that's cold.
Yeah.
It's freezing. Yeah. It's really cold. It's coldest winter I can remember.
Sort of colder than usual. Everybody's
Global warming, colder than usual, hotter than usual.
I don't get it. That's what I just said. It's global warming. Why is it getting colder? I don't get
that bit. Cool. Okay, so Hiba, why don't you give us an introduction first? Tell us about yourself, your background, and also a little bit about Seller Mobile, and then we'll get straight into your presentation.
For sure. So 15 years ago, my partner and I, we started a Amazon, well, it wasn't an Amazon, but it was an e-commerce brand, which turned later into an Amazon brand. But we were fresh out of college and we wanted to do something, and we had a friend that was in the space. And, when you're young, you're excited, you're ready to start an adventure. E-commerce wasn't what it is today. And so we started this brand. It grew and grew and grew. We added more brands to the mix. We actually then started selling on Amazon, which really helped us scale our business. And as we were working on our business and trying to be profitable and trying to increase our revenue year after year, we had realized that we needed certain tools and we needed certain, especially technology that could help us streamline the way we ran things. And we were always very technology forward. So the space that we were in, which was party supplies, glow products, LED products, kind of like Margaret's scarf there, which is shimmery and shiny. We were in a space where there were a lot of legacy brands that had been there for a really long time. And when we came into the space as newbies, we were sort of kind of dismissed a little bit. But what we did that really separated us from our competitors was that we added technology to the mix. We made ourselves more efficient and we made ourselves easier to scale through technology. And we had built this for ourselves. And 15 years later, we exited that brand. We realized that we were more excited about the technology than we were about the e-commerce business. And so we decided to pivot and really build on what is now Seller Mobile, which we use for ourselves. We added some more tools. We made it look a little bit nicer and easier to use for other sellers. But the principles, the core reason why we were able to scale to 20 million in revenue was what the software offered. And so the software got a name, Seller Mobile, and then here we are today sharing this with thousands of users who are using Seller Mobile for their own businesses to help them scale just like we did.
Okay, cool. And a big part of Seller Mobile, or a big focus for you guys, is inventory planning and inventory management, right? Because you see that as a major challenge that a lot of sellers face.
Absolutely. So, in when we were scaling our business, we were in the thick of it. We were in the middle of it all, right? So, after we exited, we actually sort of sat back in a little bit and thought, what was it? What was it that allowed us to be successful? Yes, the technology was part of it, but what about the technology was the thing that allowed us to be successful in the way we were? And we really distilled it down to three things. The first was analytics, and not just analytics, but analytics that can help us detect problems very quickly. So that was one piece. The second piece that we were doing that I don't think a lot of our competitors at the time were doing was really setting goals and benchmarks for ourselves when it came to KPIs, right? So really setting like, okay, fine, we did this, but we're not just going to willy-nilly do the next thing that comes to our head, but we're really going to set benchmarks for ourselves. So we are very strategized in the way we are scaling our business. And the thing that we're going to talk about today is inventory management, and not just the actions of inventory management, which, there's softwares out there that can let you do that, but really the thought process behind that inventory management, where then you can leverage a software, a tool like Seller Mobile, and there are others out there, where you can then use that tool to simplify the process. But the thought process behind how you think about doing inventory management is what we will talk about today.
All right, so let's get straight into it. Let me share your slides and it's over to you.
Awesome. So we talked about this a little bit, right? So those are the three things that I said. So the brand, we scaled our business, and then how we did it was those three things: the accurate reports that help you detect problems quickly, really setting benchmarks for ourselves. So we are very strategic in how and what areas we want to grow, for each quarter. And then the third piece, which is what we will talk about today, which is the inventory, so strategic inventory management. Before we get kind of started as to how, I want to kind of talk about some numbers. And you may or may not have heard of this, but 82%, I was dumbfounded by this, but 82% of businesses fail because of cash flow problems, meaning they are not being thoughtful of how their cash is moving through the business. And for e-commerce, a huge chunk of our cash ends up in inventory. Yes, there's advertising. Yes, there is human resources. Yeah, there's certain other aspects of your business that require cash, but inventory is a chunk of it. And I've read that it can be up to 40% of your cash flow can be stuck in inventory. So if that aspect of your business you're not managing in the best possible way, in the most optimized way, then you're bound to fall into that 82% of cash flow problems category, and then you're sort of stuck with your cash being in stuff that's not moving. And so it's really important to be very strategic when it comes to inventory management. Now, I like to kind of talk about this in like the old way of doing things versus the new way of doing things. So when you think of the old way of doing things, it's not as effective, is there's a lack of insight. So you actually don't really understand what's happening inside your business. You might at a very high level look at certain numbers, like maybe your revenue or your orders, really big high level numbers. But that insight, that's not insight, right? That's just sort of knowing some big numbers. Insight really comes from being able to spot certain trends. So that lack of insight is very important. That people have not been doing, or at least if they're doing it the wrong way, are not very effective. The next is cash flow, choke cash flow. So you bought a bunch of stuff, it's not moving, you've got all your money stuck in stuff. And believe me when I say that we have been there. We were sourcing from China way back when, and we literally went to China. We're like, we want this. And we bought a bunch of stuff that wasn't moving, and it was just collecting dust in our warehouse. And a whole lot of our cash was sitting in the warehouse, and that was not an effective way of doing things. So that choke cash flow can be a real problem. Forecasting. Everyone no matter how you're doing it, you may realize it or not realize it, but you are forecasting. When you're purchasing inventory, you are forecasting in some way or another. It's just a matter of how you are forecasting. So if you're manually forecasting and you don't have the best kind of math behind that, then you are either, I just mentioned the understocking, but you could also overstock on the other side of it, and either under or overstocking where you are either losing out on revenue or going back to that cash flow problem we talked about. And then the old way of doing things is also not really benchmarking, not really having anything that you are measuring yourself against. So we really focus on the new way of doing things. The new way of doing things, the more successful, the more predictive way of doing things is spotting trends very quickly, especially when it comes to those profit leaks. Having your cost, your expenses, your revenue, your profit, your margins, all of that in one place. You're not going to 5 different places to look at information, which you may or may not end up doing because it's so cumbersome. And then the other piece is really those dynamic forecasting models. So why not use an algorithm that is kind of put there in place for you so you are not forecasting just manually and off the cuff, and really not just restocking an FBA, which is, you have to be very conscientious of how you do that, but also purchasing from your supplier. How are you doing that sort of in a forecasted way? And then the last piece, and so that middle piece is what we'll focus on today. And then the last piece is really simplifying the way we do KPIs. Because the thing is, most small businesses, which are, Amazon sellers that are either just beginning or have scale to a certain extent, those Amazon sellers, they're either doing it by themselves completely. They may have a partner, they may have a VA, but that's it. So they don't really have time to sit there and have a whole department that, these larger companies do to just collect data and set benchmarks and see if you're following through with benchmarks. So this has to be done in a really, really simplified way. And because a lot of sellers don't have time to do that, and a lot of these smaller brands don't have time to do that, they're simply not doing it at all. But not doing it can also, on the other end of it, be sort of, you're like blindly going through your business without really strategy. So why effective planning, right? What does it help? And none of this is brand new information. We've all heard it a million times, but really it's about following through with it. It's about now getting the insight to strategize against it. So obviously effective effective inventory planning reduces stockouts, right? Stockouts, bad for business, lost revenue. Overstock, equally bad for business, cash flow problems. Rotating your stock faster. Understanding that number is so important when it comes to how you reorder, right? So if you've got, and there's a statistic I've heard often is like 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your products, right? They say 80-20 rule is very kind of, it's really well known out there. And so making sure that you are restocking that 20% of inventory or products, so you don't affect that big chunk of your revenue that 20% is bringing. Of course, increasing cash flow, really important. That cycle is so important. Reducing a lot of guesswork. I have talked to sellers that are doing millions of dollars and they're like, I don't know, I just order when things are running low. And that's great. Sometimes that works and you get really lucky, but oftentimes it's going to catch up to you in some way or another. And then preventing delays. So because you're being preemptive, because you're being predictive, you are really preventing things that are going to happen down the line with, longer lead times or things you may not get to see as much. Please, Margaret, Kevin, Megla, please interrupt if you have any questions or if the viewers have any questions.
Yeah, I think it's all good for now. So anybody who's watching, if you have any questions, type them in the comments, and we'll be taking questions. Just want to say hi to Christine. She's
Hi.
joining us as well. So yeah, let's keep going.
Awesome. So here are 5 simple steps. And again, none of this is rocket science, but the most important thing when it comes to this is actually sitting down and creating a method to the madness and creating a strategy of doing this. So things that you need to do, you need to look at your historic sales. Or you need to look at competitor sales if you are new, this is a new product. You need to track trends. You need to be looking at your cost of goods, your fees, and your inventory levels. And you've got to do this not only a big picture for the whole store, but really maybe drilling down deep for brands, drilling down even deeper for products, or maybe even by supplier. So those are certain things that you need to be looking at in order to do the next few steps. So historically looking at sales is really, really important. Then the next piece is forecasting. So when you're forecasting, it's really important to account for seasonality. In some cases, sellers don't even realize that there is seasonality in their products, but there almost always is. And so looking at that seasonality trends and then looking at outliers. So, like early in the pandemic, certain things just like absolutely skyrocketed in terms of sales, or you'll have, certain kind of fads that happen where things become really, really popular all of a sudden because of some TikTok or whatever thing happens in and outside of your control. And so looking at those outliers, looking at seasonality trends, and also changes in marketing strategy. So if you are deciding to invest in advertising for this particular product, or you are spending more money on influencer marketing, or you're spending more money on certain aspects of marketing or advertising for that product, then that needs to be accounted for in the forecast. The next piece is really setting strict or tentative budgets for your business. So that means when you are, and this could be literally just you on different hats, or it could be different people with different roles in the company. But marketing and accounting need to be part of that. So that means you either put your marketing hat on, you put your accounting hat on. If you're using an agency to do your marketing, they need to really understand what your reorder plans are and what your restock plans are. Not that they go and decide, oh, this is our budget for marketing, and supply and logistics has no idea. So you've spent all of this money on PPC, on display ads, or whatever the case may be, on DSP, but you didn't look at the supply part of it and make sure that you have enough in stock. So you're not making, so you're gonna lose money both ways. So that piece is really important. This I can't really highlight enough, but monthly or weekly recaps are so, so important. So this isn't a one-time thing. This isn't okay, I have this new product, I'm really invested in this product, and so I'm really going to look at the historical sales for maybe competitors, or I'm really going to look at how I'm forecasting. I'm going to sit down and do budgets. This has to be something that's done cyclically. And it really depends, how often really depends on how much inventory you have. So when we were doing things for our own business, we were depending on, we were doing it by supplier. So depending on how our catalog was at the time, if you've got a handful of products, doing this monthly, a 30-day cycle is just fine. But if you've got a larger catalog and you have at least more than 100 products that you're selling, doing this weekly is really, really important because it helps you stay on top of things. I even go so far as, even for Seller Mobile itself, I dedicate a day to look at statistics. So Mondays is my stat days, because there's no point in collecting all this data unless you're looking at the data and then making decisions based off of it. So taking that time out and putting this in your schedule, in your Google Calendar, to say, I'm going to look at statistics from this time to this time, and then that's going to help me through my meetings throughout the week, or that's going to help me make a decision about marketing, or that's going to help me make a decision about advertising spend, or whatever the case may be. And in this case, purchasing, obviously. And then again, once you've got those recaps, you're really looking at your ad budget and your promotions based on that. So one of the really cool things that Seller Mobile does that actually was, that feature came from a customer. I hadn't even thought about that. I wish that we had that when we were running our own e-commerce business. But this guy asked for deviation alerts. So what he wanted to know was, if I am forecasting this much, and I am selling this much, I want a deviation alert between them. So he said, so then I want to get a notification in my email telling me if I am within a certain range. So let's say that you forecasted that you were going to sell 100 items. And you're comfortable with a 20% deviation. So if you're selling 80 or you're selling 120, you're fine. Don't tell me. I know that there isn't going to be an exact number. However, if I forecasted that I'm going to sell 100 items and I only sell 50, or on the other hand, I sell 150, that's way beyond my forecast. At that time, if you tell me this on a weekly basis, then I can actually go in and do something about this. So I'm not waiting until the end of the month or the end of the quarter or end of the year to say, oh crap, like here's where we had lost sales. I can actually go in and say, if I've hit 150, I am not prepared for next month or the month after. I need to go in and quickly create an FBA restock plan and transfer, whatever amount of inventory to make sure that I don't get stuck with lost sales. Vice versa. If I'm not selling what I anticipated, why am I not selling what I anticipated? This is an opportunity to go in and look at competitors in the space. This is an opportunity to look at pricing for competitors in this space. Am I overpricing my product? How are my reviews doing? How is my marketing going? Have I not set accurate bids for my product, for my keywords to be able to get enough eyeballs? One of the other things that Seller Mobile does that kind of goes into conjunction, which is a leading indicator, right? So you want to look at some leading indicators. Not that are going to tell you how profitable or how much sales you're going to make, is sessions. So Amazon gives you a sessions report. You can do it by day, you can do it by week, you can do it by month, whatever the case may be through Seller Central. Unfortunately, there isn't an API connection for the sessions report, but what we sort of went around through like the back end was if you upload your sessions report to Seller Mobile, you can then on a daily or weekly basis see, how are my sessions doing? Are my sessions going up? Are my sessions going down? That is a leading indicator of how your sales are going to go in the future. So looking at kind of some of these different pieces of information, some of these different pieces of data, you will know then what levers to pull, because they will kind of tell you, is it this thing? And then it's just a process of elimination at that point to say, no, it's not the price. No, it's not the competitor. Oh, wait, I'm just not getting enough eyeballs on my product the way I thought I was going to. So, and then that kind of goes back to number one, it's cyclical. You do the adjustments and then you go back to tracking your data, forecasting, setting a budget, doing weekly recaps, and ordering and purchasing. Transferring and purchasing, and then adjusting where you need to. All right. So the next part is, right, kind of like best practices, like what we've learned over time. When it comes to inventory management, I sort of have identified three key pieces. There's people, there's processes, and there's technology. So the thing with people is experience and expertise is kind of what is going to help you in this part. You can't really gain expertise until you gain experience, and you can't gain experience until you just do it. And so it's really a matter of doing it over and over again and getting really good at it. I really believe in like the power of 100. So we did this with CoolGlow. We did this with our other brands. We did this with Seller Mobile. I still to this day do this with Seller Mobile. I will usually do things for the first 100 times, be it the first 100 customers, be it the first 100, whatever the case may be, just the first 100, meaning, and it doesn't have to be 100 exactly, but the idea is you've got to do it yourself, and you've got to figure out, as the owner, as the founder, you've got to figure out what the process is. Once you've done it enough times yourself and you've mastered the piece of it, you can then bring on a team member and show them exactly how you want it done. And so when it comes to the people part, it's figuring it out yourself is just a matter of time. You've got to just go out there and do it. Once you do it, then you can bring on a VA, or you can bring on someone who can then follow that process. Don't rely on someone on the outside to create that process for you. It's never going to work. Either it's not going to work the way you want it to, they're not going to be as invested in your business as you are. So do it yourself, figure it out, create that process that we just talked about in the last slide, and then hand it over to someone. You don't need to be the one doing it, but you need to be the one that sets the process. Which brings me to my next point of really intelligent strategizing, right? So there's something else I'd heard the other day. I'm going to butcher it. I know I'm going to, but it was something along the lines of, it's better to do something in like mediocrity, like over and over again, than doing like an excellent job one time. And I truly believe that. So this process that we talked about, if you just do an excellent job one time and you're really dedicated, but then you're not doing this over and over again and you're not rinsing and repeating, like it's not going to work. It only works when you are really, really setting certain processes in place that can happen over and over again, be it with people or be it just sort of how you live your life. And then the last piece really is technology. Just, sometimes it works to use Excel and it works to use spreadsheets, but oftentimes that the thing that you had set up dead 100 times, it can be done a lot more efficiently and a lot easier with technology. So leverage technology when you can, but know that technology is just one small part of it. The process and the people, I would only think process more than people, but you can't do process without people. So are really kind of the cornerstones that are going to make your inventory management efficient and optimized. So this kind of brings us to almost the end of our presentation, right? So all of these things that we talked about, everybody needs to be doing them. However, how you do them is kind of where there are all of these solutions out there. So with Seller Mobile, because we've done that, because we've been there in the shoes of sellers, and my partner actually is still running an Amazon business with other partners, is we know what it takes. We know what are the pieces, the moving parts of running an Amazon business. And so the really having real-time data where you can make decisions effectively is so important. And so Seller Mobile offers custom dashboards to help you analyze your business, your brands, your suppliers, your products. So depending on what hat you're wearing that day of the week, you can look at data in a segmented way. We want to make restocking really simple. It is not complicated. If you're following the process, you can come into Seller Mobile and create a purchase order for your suppliers in less than 10 clicks. So once you have everything set up, it can be a really fast process. Forecasting, it's really important. And so again, you can do the math yourself. You can make sure you take the outliers out. You can make sure that you're looking at seasonality and other trends. But then Seller Mobile offers an algorithm that learns as you go. So, and I'll show you a couple of slides of what the software looks like. But you can go in there and say, manually update my forecast. And as you manually update it and the system learns as you're selling it and the more historical data it has, it can then really tell you exactly, pinpoint, like very closely how much you need to reorder and how much you need to transfer. And then the piece that I talked about, that deviation alert, the forecast to actuals, makes a huge difference in terms of how you can pivot and take action quickly. And then we talked about creating the KPIs. So that is something that can be done really simply, either when it comes to your order. So you can say, I want for this particular product, I want this number of orders every month or every day or every week, whatever that number is for you. And then the system, rather than you going in and entering the data and looking at Seller Central and seeing how many, it tells you, hey, are you on track? Are you off track? If you're not on track, then let's do something about it and pull one of those levers that we talked about earlier. So when you go into the software, this is kind of the menu that you see. You can connect your Amazon store. You can connect your Walmart store. We do a lot more analytics and functionality for Amazon than we do Walmart. However, as our sellers are getting into Walmart more and are asking for some of those reports, we're increasing how much we do in the Walmart side as well. But you've got analytics on one side, you've got automation on the other side, and then you've got a mobile app that helps you do things on the go. So in terms of the automation, we have a repricer that is not necessarily relevant to a lot of private label sellers, but if you're reselling big brands, this is a great tool. And then we also have a request for review automation tool, so you can go in and get those product reviews to make yourself more attractive to potential buyers. And like I said, so this is sort of the simplicity of it, right? This is the simplicity of the software. It's telling you, and this is just obviously a screenshot, is it's telling you how many units you need to order from this particular supplier. Blur that out. For this product, it's telling you when you need to order and how many units you need to order. And then you get to look at your historic sales and your future sales. And then we also tell you your daily sales velocity. So very, very simply, you can go in. This is another thing that I really like, because I think often the problem is that people are looking at too many different places to get the data that they need. And when it's all there on one screen, it makes things really simple. So here, everything in blue is historic sales. Everything in green is current sales. Everything in orange is future. And everything in yellow is your inventory at the time. So it can very easily, you can spot, why did I not have that many sales around this time? And you go down to inventory and you say, oh, because I was stocked out. I see that I didn't have enough inventory. So it's really easy to solve for things. And then the last piece, again, this is just sort of a highlighted version of it, is that deviation alert. So we'll tell you when it's whatever that frame is for you, whatever that percentage is for you, plus or minus, we'll tell you where your deviations are from your actuals to your forecasts. And then last but not least, this is what the purchase order looks like. Super, super simple. You create a purchase order, you add inventory, you tell us how many items go in a carton, if you want it by carton or package, and then we will round it up for you, or we usually round up. And then you tell us what the lead time is for that particular supplier, and then you can simply create a PDF of the purchase order and send it over to your supplier in India, and they know exactly what they need to send. And even simpler, you can get the labels printed from the software, send it over to your supplier. So then you can split the shipment and say, send this send this much to my warehouse, send this much to FBA, and you've really simplified and optimized the process. So before we go into the offer, any questions? It was kind of quiet. I feel like, do you guys, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions here. So Christine is first of all asking, is this software good for brick and mortar businesses, Shopify businesses, and startups?
So in terms of what the software allows you to do, it is focused on Amazon. However, what it allows you to do is it allows you to add your warehouses to the software. So you can say, I have X, Y, and Z warehouse, and it has this much inventory. I have this brick and mortar store at this location, and it has this much inventory. And then you can say, for Shopify, obviously your inventory is lying in one of those places. So you can go into the software and add your inventory for specific warehouses. And as you make sales, we'll subtract the inventory. However, it is a bit of a manual process. So we don't integrate with Shopify yet. And depending on which warehouse management system you use, we may or may not be able to connect an API to that. So it's not designed to be used by brick and mortar stores or Shopify sellers. It's really designed to be used for Amazon sellers.
Okay, that makes sense.
like the principles that you spoke of, Hiba, we speak about those every week in our mastermind, and it is true that if you don't sort of know the processes, you don't learn how to do it yourself. There's no point hiring a VA and sort of saying, "Hey, just do all this for me." And we hear time and time again, the people, they want to get themselves, VAs to do things, but they're not really up to speed with what they're doing in the first place. So, no, it's fantastic advice. Yeah, great. We were quiet really because we were listening to your fantastic presentation.
Well, thank you very much. So so if you've got a lot of sellers that are using VAs, right, that are watching you guys and that are following you, we've got this. So again, there's like a software solution for almost everything as long as you set a process around it. So when you set a process around your VAs and what functions you want them to do, then you can go and give them certain permissions within the software. So the idea is for the dashboard to be super customizable. So if your VA's function is to restock inventory, then create a custom dashboard for the VA to be knowing exactly what numbers to be looking at. So you can, in that dashboard, have your top 5 products in a line, and then their job every day is to look at those top 5 products and see if they're functioning and performing the way they're supposed to be. And anytime they're not, and you identify a number for them, say, hey, when average sales go below this point, tell me, notify me. So you don't have to look at every hat every day all the time. You create the processes, and then you create a feedback loop with people that will then alert you to when, shit hits the fan. And so that way you can step in. So again, the software solution is really there to kind of create that function for you. And then we've got a lot of different views to look at this information.
Excellent.
Hey, but what we have, like a lot of new people say, how will I know when to start reordering when it's my first product? And, so do you suggest you need 3 months startup live, or what would you suggest? Or can you use the opposition's figures? How would you handle that?
That's a great question. So that one is a little bit, right? You've got it. I think it's like a combination of looking at your competitors. That's obviously very important, just like you would be in that product, sourcing phase, is you're looking at how your competitors are doing. I think 3 months is a really good benchmark. I think going back any further might be too skewed, but if possible, I would look at the same time last year. So I would look at the most recent, and I would look at the same period last year. So that way you can see if there are really big anomalies, especially if it's a seasonal type product. And then really that ordering depends very, very significantly on your supplier lead time. So if your supplier is telling you it's going to take you at least 90 days to get the product after you've placed the order, then you need to look at 90 days ahead of that. So if you have, made a purchase, and then the third part that really depends on is how much capital do you have? If you don't have a ton of capital to start with, you might have to be every month thinking 90 days ahead. But if you've got enough capital to order for the next, 6 months or so, and then have a space where you can store the products, then, looking at this data is sort of really significant. And then the other piece would be to look at your own data. So if you're a new seller, I would say not the last 3 months and then the same period last year, taking into account the supplier's lead time, and then how much capital you have to spend on this product. But then after that, looking at your own data to see, am I making the sales that I thought I was going to or not, is going to predict how you reorder for the second time.
Okay. Yeah, no.
So the other thing, Hiba, to customize, are you able to customize the purchase order? Like, is it easy to customize? So I can put anything I want. I can add sort of certain lines, what I request for my supplier.
Absolutely. So the way when you start, and this is like where we really like to do this, is when you sign up for the software, we will do a customized one-on-one onboarding with you. So the
Right.
onboarding consists of 2 parts. We'll sit there with you and create your first purchase order, your first FBA restock plan. And then the second thing we'll do is we'll do data migration. So if you've got your cost of goods, because part of the purchase order is saying, this is how much I'm going to be spending, this is how much the item costs me. And so then the supplier can see what that number is. And then also if you want to add your retail price on there too, so you know exactly what you are anticipated in getting back. So we'll help you update all of those numbers within the software. In terms of the customizability, the way the purchase order works is we start off by doing it by supplier. So you can do it by supplier, or you can do it if you're doing a restock by warehouse. So for this one supplier, we'll tell you all the different products that are attached to this supplier, and then we'll show you the restock suggestions. You can go into the software and say, only show me stuff that needs to be reordered in the next 90 days. Don't show me stuff that, because I'm focused right now on the next 90 days. That's my lead time. So I need to make sure I ordered this stuff today. But once you create that supplier restock plan and you say, you know what, it's cheaper for me I need these MOQs. I need to make sure that I am, getting this much in. And this container is almost full. Let me go ahead and add certain other products to this too. And then you can go ahead and do that. So we'll set up the foundation for you, and then you can always add, edit, delete within that purchase order before it's finalized. And then on the very bottom, there's a place for notes. So if you want to leave notes for your suppliers, and then when you get to the PDF, you can actually sign the purchase order within the software. So really, that thing is ready to go to your supplier.
Right. Yeah. That sounds good. Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. Yeah. So Hiba, do you think the software is also useful for new sellers who are just starting out? And like, what is the pricing like, and how do you think new sellers would benefit from it?
Sure. So the way I like to sort of think of this is you've got to decide at what point you're ready to make that investment in the software, right? So if you are brand new, again, process is more important than you can't just buy a bunch of softwares and then just sort of expect it to do the work for you. So you've got to know what you want to do before you get into that software. The whole job of the software is just to make life more efficient and easier for you. So what would have taken you maybe 3 hours to do on a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet is now going to take you maybe 15 minutes to do because you've got the process down. In terms of the pricing, it really is what your budget is, right? So as new sellers come in and they set their budget for their inventory, they set their budget for, like if they have budget for a VA, if they have budget for like really different line items in their P&L, you've got to see if that's affordable. So Seller Mobile has 3 plans. The first is just analytics. So if you just want to look at your data so you can very quickly identify your pain points, that's $60 a month. If you are someone who not only needs the data, but also is looking for automation, so product reviews, you're really focused on those right now, or if you are a reseller and you're looking to automate your repricing, that plan is $120. And then if you are one that's like, all right, I'm got my big boy pants on and I'm ready to really be serious about how I spend time with restocking and purchasing, that plan is $250 rounded up. So it's really a matter of creating that process and seeing where you are in your business. So I'll tell you, one of the features that it's so funny is how exciting people get about this is in your mobile app. Seller Mobile has a mobile app. It's a native mobile app, and there is an alert for new orders. So every time you get an order, you get a little cha-ching sound. And it's such a positive feedback loop, and people really like it. You'll be at dinner, whatever, and you'll like, cha-ching, I made a sale, cha-ching, I made a sale. So at that point every single order is exciting, at that point in your journey, having just the analytics and the mobile app is sufficient. You don't need to spend $250. Don't spend $250 when you don't have the process. But as you grow and you're like, okay, this is annoying, I don't want the cha-chings anymore because this is distracting. That's when you graduate really to the web app. That's when you graduate to the functionalities of automating and getting those product reviews, and then to restocking and doing things in a really sort of methodical way. So that's kind of my really long-winded answer of like where you fall into the different categories. But thank you, Megala, for pulling up the slide here. Is we've got a great discount for your users. ISN 20 gives you 20% off for 6 months. And if you're struggling, and you don't have the budget for it, come talk to us. We'll work something out. We've been there, so we empathize. Like, we remember when every penny was really, really, really important in our business. And so we'll work with sellers to get them to get the most out of a software. One of the things that I really feel passionate about when it comes to e-commerce, and especially small businesses, is that there are large companies, your Fortune 500 companies, your really sort of large, fast growth companies. They have this. They have the analytics. They can't function without it. They can't function without the technology. But why is it that we sort of want small sellers and startups to do all of these things and to make all of these decisions on a whim or a gut? Like, why are we not focused on looking at this through data and through analytics? And so I really feel passionate about providing this to sellers, is because they need it just as much as your Googles and your Teslas and your Microsofts and everyone else out there. It's just we need to make it more affordable for them, and we need to make it more accessible to them. And that's really the goal of Seller Mobile, is to make technology more affordable and accessible to small businesses.
So Hiba, how does it work with product reviews? What special little software have you got for product reviews?
Yeah, so so what Amazon did, I think, oh gosh, like maybe a year and a half ago, I can't remember anymore. Things are like the last 3 years have been a bit of a fuss. Like I don't know time anymore. So what Amazon did was, before, a couple of years ago, they would allow sellers to write any kind of email to get product reviews from their for their orders.
Yeah, that's right.
Then what they did was they said, okay, but you can't ask for only positive reviews, and you can't say this, that, or the other, or we'll ban your ability to send reviews. Then what they did was they said, so modern day today, they have a new API called the Selling Partner API that Seller Mobile integrates with. And they said you can ask for product reviews. However, you have to use Amazon's template to do it. So if you have purchased anything from Amazon, like I have, you'll get these emails asking you for product reviews, or you'll get a little Alexa message and it's saying, how did you like it? Rate this product, whatever. So what Seller Mobile does is it automates that process for the sellers. Though the review, the email, comes from Amazon, it's got the Amazon domain, Amazon doesn't actually send out those emails on behalf of the sellers. The sellers are responsible for doing that themselves. What Amazon does is when you go to your orders page, there's a little button there for every order that's been processed, that's been shipped out. You can click a request review. So what we do through the API is you tell us between 5 days and 30 days of that product being shipped when you want to ask for reviews. And honestly, it is faster to set up than my lengthy speech right now about product. But it takes less than 45 seconds to set this up, and it's Amazon compliant, TOS compliant, so you're not going to get in trouble with Amazon. And it's a great way to build product loyalty, a great way to build really differentiate yourself from other products that are similar on the market to get those product reviews.
You can only do one email too. Sorry, can't you? Sorry. One.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. One per order. Correct.
Yeah. No, it sounds like you've got a lot of good tools in your toolbox. And I've always loved technology. I mean, technology is the only way to go. And if anyone's scaling, this is obviously the way to go. There's no doubt about it. For time saving, I can see the valuable time you would save is, it doesn't match the dollars that you would spend for it. So to me, it's like, yeah, it sounds like a bargain.
One of the things that I like to say is, and you can see the value of the software so quickly, is we have a report in there called lot sales. So we'll show you at a product level, at a brand level, or a company-wide level, what your lost sales were because of out of stock. And so we'll say in the last 30 days and the last 60 days, what you lost in revenue because you were out of stock. So if you just make up for that number, I can promise you for almost any given account, the 250 isn't even going to come close to it. So you get your money's worth in just restocking correctly, so you don't have lost sales because of out of stock. And so month over month, you're going to make up for the $250, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things, just by making sure that you have that in-stock rate go from, maybe 60% to 70% or 70% to 80%. So.
Well, hey, Hiba, what does a stock out cost people? I mean, how long's a piece of string? It costs people a lot of money when they stock out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they sort of don't stock out, yeah, good.
Yeah, because when you come back in stock, then it's very difficult to rank the product, right?
Exactly.
That's the biggest, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not just that, because then there's a domino effect, right? So you're not only are you losing immediate money, but also now you're not on page one anymore. Now you're not ranked anymore. Now you got to
your BSR,
into PPC to get you up there, to get your sales where they were. So really not stocking out is the solution. And, having a software tell you this is how much you order and this is how much you restock is kind of the answer.
Yeah. And I think especially when you're sourcing from India, because lead times are longer in India. So if you do not restock, or if you do not place your orders on time, then there's really a risk that, you'll stock out and you'll be stocked out for a longer duration. Yeah. So planning is just so important, when sourcing from India. Yeah. Cool. Well, all right. Yeah.
Kevin, I was just going to say, I mean, I work with Marg and Megla every day, and Calendly, they worship Calendly. Everything is done on a calendar. So it's the same thing with the technology that you're saying, Hiba. It's knowing what tomorrow is going to bring, and what yesterday give you. So
learning from yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, that's well said, Kevin. Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Hiba, thank you so much for joining us today. A really good information. And I'm just going to show this slide once more. So sellermobile.com, that's the website in case anyone's interested. Head over to sellermobile.com, plug in the code ISN20. You get 20% off for 6 months. There's also a free trial of the tool. Is that correct?
14-day free trial. Yeah.
Okay, 14-day free trial, so you could try that as well. And check it out. All right, Hiba, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Hiba.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.